As a little girl, I knew my grandmother lived in Pennsylvania, but I never thought about why she lived there or how she got there. My family would go back every summer for vacation. My mom would clean the house, and I would explore the attic and basement looking for treasure. Grandma had met Grandpa while she was working in a silk mill. They married in 1917. Hats were all the rage at that time. When Grandpa went off to serve in World War I, Grandma stayed with her parents. They had immigrated from Lithuania, first her father in about 1888, then her mother in about 1890. My great-grandparents met in Pennsylvania and were married in 1893. Brown was the color of the bride's gown, ever practical, those immigrants. The groom was a miner, hazardous but steady work alongside mostly East European and Irish immigrants. This region was known for anthracite coal, a hard coal, different from the coal mined in western Pennsylvania. With many mines needing unskilled laborers, the region saw the population grow from the 1850s through the early 1900s. It was either Adams or Marcella's worldly possessions that were in this trunk from Lithuania, first traveling by ship, then by railroad to this region. If only I had asked my grandmother so many questions when I was younger. So now that 120 years have flown past, it's about time to have a look at the place from which these ancestors came. Bordered by Latvia, Belarus, the Baltic Sea, Poland, and Kaliningrad, Lithuania today is about twice the size of Belgium. Population is just under 3 million, and it joined the European Union in 2002. Let's go to the region of earliest settlement. Originally, Baltic tribes had settled in the Neris Valley as early as the 2nd century BC. These 5 mounds once supported the oldest castles in the land. Archaeological research continues and reveals proof of inhabitation as long ago as 9000 BC. The first and only king of Lithuania, Mindaugas, was crowned 750 years ago with his claims to fame of accepting Christianity, building a church, and uniting the Baltic and Lithuanian tribes. All that in only 10 years. Gediminas was the Grand Duke of Lithuania in the 14th century, a strong ruler who invited craftsmen to settle in Vilnius, the newly established capital. Legend has it that he dreamt of an iron wolf who told him to build his castle on the high hill of Vilnius. Today, only portions remain of the brick tower. The panoramic views from up top are beautiful. It's easy to explore the current capital, Vilnius, on foot since it's very compact. Cathedral Square is centrally located in Vilnius Old Town. It's the site of current-day festivals and gatherings. The Cathedral Basilica of St. Stanislav and Władysław is a focal point. It was built beginning in 1251 on the former site of a pagan temple and rebuilt every century thereafter. Inside the cathedral, there's a lavish chapel dedicated to St. Casimir, the patron saint of Lithuania. His remains are housed in a silver sarcophagus above the altar. He had been the son of a nobleman, but chose a pious life of praying in the cathedral. When he died of tuberculosis at age 25, it was thought that his coffin could cure disease. Created by Italian masters from 1623 to 1636, the beauty of the ceiling frescoes, marble columns, and stucco figures are prime examples of what's called Lithuanian Baroque. Rulers in the early 17th century had invited Italian sculptors and architects to redesign the city of Vilnius, since most of it had been destroyed by fire. Deep below the cathedral, in the crypt, one can find the last resting place for Grand Duke Vytautas the Great, his wife Anna, his brother Sigmund, and the 2 wives of Sigmund. The marriages of royals from Lithuania and Poland creates a forest of regal family trees. In 1454, the King of Poland, who also held the title of Grand Duke of Lithuania, Casimir Jagiellon, married Elizabeth of Austria. They produced 13 children. 4 of their sons became kings, and 5 daughters married princes. 1 son became a cardinal, and 1 son was later declared a saint. Those last 2 daughters must have felt left out of the pageantry. In 1925, a great discovery was made during restorations at the crypt of the cathedral, a fresco of Christ's crucifixion dating from the first half of the 15th century. This is believed to be the oldest artwork in the cathedral. The fresco has been analyzed by experts who determined that this work combines Byzantine style with symbolic Catholic representation. It shows the 2 Christian traditions of resurrection and redemption, with images of the Virgin Mary and St. John the Evangelist. Today, outside the bell tower of the cathedral, there's a small square of marble tile on the plaza with the letters inscribed on it, spelling out miracle. It is said that if one stands on the square and turns around 3 times and makes a wish, the wish will come true. Supposedly, the human chain called the Baltic Way was begun on this spot in 1989. This was an event dedicated to publicize all 3 Baltic states' history of human suffering. The connection of people holding hands stretched from Vilnius through Latvia and up to Estonia, a distance of over 330 miles. More than 2,000 ornate stucco figures of angels and demons fill the interior of the Church of St. Peter and St. Paul. The portico has magnificent stucco work by Italian masters. The church's main benefactor, Michael Kazimierz Pach, was a Lithuanian military leader and governor whose portrait, family crest, as well as his own remains are immortalized in this monument to peace. An inscription outside reads, "Queen of Peace, protect us in peace," as a play on words for the patron's name. On the southern end of the old town, there is a monument holding a painting of the Madonna of Mercy. The Gates of Dawn is a site of pilgrimage, as this painting is said to have miraculous powers. It was originally painted on oak panels in the 1620s. It was customary to have a chapel at each entranceway to a city to protect the travelers as they leave. Vilnius University, one of the oldest and most prominent schools in Europe, was established in 1597. It was originally founded as a Jesuit college. It includes the Church of St. John the Baptist and St. John the Divine. It was originally constructed as a Gothic-style church, but later rebuilt in Baroque style. With its separate bell tower, one of the tallest structures in Vilnius stands 223 feet tall. One of the largest of 13 courtyards has beautiful frescoes that are currently under restoration. The Church of St. Anne is a Gothic-style red brick church used by Napoleon's army as a barracks in 1812. It is said that Napoleon was so enamored with this church he wanted to take it back to Paris with him. Over 33 styles of brick were used to create this beautiful building, some in the shape of flowers and curled leaves. The beautiful facade has survived the centuries, yet today the structure itself is in danger from the vibrations of passing traffic. It is outstanding due to the combination of Gothic-style architecture for its windows with Baroque-style scrollwork on its exterior. The TV tower at 1,069 feet is the tallest structure in Lithuania and the location of tragic events never to be forgotten. On January 13, 1991, the Soviets attempted to take control of the Lithuanian media. Tanks surrounded the tower and 13 unarmed protesters, many of whom were students, were killed. The graves of the deceased are at the nearby cemetery, with a white stone marking the grave of the one woman student, Loreta Asanavichute. These graves are guarded by a large pietà. The cemetery is a sprawling garden with wood carvings and statues reflecting the strong connection with religion held by Lithuanians despite centuries of oppression. If we go back in time to see what rural life was like about 100 years ago, we can visit the Ethnographic Museum. Here are reconstructions of the architecture and furnishings of houses from the different regions of Lithuania: Suvalkija, Aukštaitija, Žemaitija, and Dzūkija. The museum was built by all Lithuanians, some contributing donated items or information about their grandparents' work in efforts to represent the life and times of yesteryear. The thatched roofs can last 20 to 30 years. Special grasses that are termite resistant were used, but fire was a bigger threat. Hand-hewn woodwork easily obtained as the land is 30% forest. Woven materials like baskets, rag carpets, and linens were very time-consuming tasks with useful purposes. Kitchen gardens were a source for herbs used for medicinal purposes as well as cooking. At the end of a hard day of labor, the father of the family would carve the meat and offer food first to those who worked the hardest that day. One type of building found on a larger farmstead would be a storehouse. It typically had separate small rooms for dowry items, clothing, meat, or even for sleeping. Sometimes household valuables and documents were housed in here in case of fire in the main farmhouse. A more ornate storehouse would indicate that the landowner was a noble person. A small space inside could be used as a hideout by conscripted youths attempting to evade serving in the Tsarist Russian army. The horses are different than American breeds, used for centuries to plow all those fields of wheat, potatoes, and cabbages. One type of heavy draft horse is known as zmud. They are a stocky build with a short, muscular neck and large head. Udkrente is a village along the western seaside coast of Lithuania with famous wood carvings on the heavily forested Witches' Hill. Centuries-old trees overlook the water. Over 80 oak sculptures were begun in 1979, made by artists inspired by the forest atmosphere. Ancient inhabitants of the region believed that witches assembled here during the summer solstice and could call upon hail, drought, flood, and even an eclipse. Larger-than-life sculptures depict a variety of folk legends. Near Udkrente, a slim tract of land 61 miles long was formed 5,000 years ago. Called the Curonian Spit and also known as the Courland Isthmus, it connects Klaipėda in the north with Kaliningrad in the south, forming a lagoon rich in wildlife. Hundreds of different species of birds are known to come to the area each spring. More than a century ago, over an 80-year time span, drifting sands buried 14 villages, so trees and grasses were planted to strengthen the dunes and prevent further erosion. Legend has it that a protector of the lagoon, a water sprite, takes jugfuls from the sea and pours it into the lagoon so that it never dries up. A common spot for wedding photos is the Parnidis Dune, a natural monument known as the Lithuanian Sahara. As part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site, the national park was created to preserve this natural wonder. A large modern sundial can be walked upon at the dunes, where visitors walk through time, marking one step for each hour and rows of steps for each month. One of the most famous Lithuanian folk tales is about Eglė and the grassy snake. Told over again for centuries, here is one version. Once upon a time, there lived an old man and his wife. Together, they had 9 sons and 3 daughters. The youngest girl was named Eglė. On a warm summer evening, all 3 girls decided to go swimming. After bathing with her 2 sisters, Eglė discovered a serpent in the sleeve of her blouse. The eldest girl grabbed Eglė's blouse, threw it down, and jumped on it, but the serpent did not leave. Turning to Eglė, the serpent spoke to her in a man's voice, saying, "Eglė, promise to become my bride, and I will gladly leave." In order to get him to leave her clothes, Eglė pledged herself to him, not understanding the possible consequences. 3 days later, thousands of serpents came for Eglė, but her relatives tricked them 3 times in a row. A goose, a sheep, and a cow were each given instead of the girl. Finally, the enraged serpents returned one last time and took Eglė with them to their master at the bottom of the sea. Instead of seeing a serpent, Eglė met her bridegroom, named Žilvinis, a handsome man who was the serpent prince. They married and had 4 children, living happily. One day, Eglė wished to visit her home, but her husband would not allow her. In order to be allowed the visit, Eglė would be required to complete 3 nearly impossible tasks: to spin a never-ending tuft of silk, wear down a pair of iron shoes, and bake a pie with no utensils. Upon advice from a sorceress, Eglė was able to complete these tasks. She and her 4 children left Žilvinis to visit her home. After meeting with Eglė and her children, her family wished to keep her there rather than let her return to the sea. They plotted to kill Žilvinis. Eglė's brothers asked her sons to reveal the secret calling of Žilvinis, but they would not. Finally, one of Eglė's daughters disclosed it. "Žilvinis, dear Žilvinis, if alive, may the sea foam with milk. If dead, may the sea foam with blood." The 9 brothers then called Žilvinis out from the sea and killed him with an axe. They kept the secret of their deed from Eglė. Worried, Eglė called her husband, but only foams of blood returned from the sea. Discovering that her beloved husband was dead, Eglė turned herself and her children into trees. Her sons were turned into strong trees, oak, ash, and birch. Her daughter was turned into an aspen and trembles with the slightest breeze to this very day. The Janina Marks Museum was opened in 2001 and has displays of both folk art as well as tapestries, paintings, and graphics created by Janina Marks herself. As an immigrant to the United States in 1950, she had studied art and created many beautiful works. Establishing the museum was a way for her to give back to her homeland with educational outreach programs that combine both visual and performance art. Nicholas Kurlionis is Lithuania's most famous painter and composer. He started out with symphonic and organ works, and at age 27 he also began to study drawing. He went on to create 300 works of music and painting, dying tragically at age 36 from pneumonia. Food is artfully presented at every meal, and breakfast is very important. There are over 400 edible varieties of mushrooms found in the forests. Families go mushrooming from early spring until late autumn. The most popular region is in the southeast. Creative cooks use mushrooms fresh, dried, salted, marinated. They even appear on the breakfast buffet too. It is said that every mushroom is edible the first time. Stuffed cabbage becomes a special event when prepared as a traditional country-style meal. Layers of ground spiced meat are spread over whole cabbage leaves to be baked as a dome. It is covered with a lid of bread dough that blackens in the oven. Once it's baked for many hours, the bread lid is removed, moist wedges are cut, and it's topped with a flavorful sauce served with dilled potatoes for the crowd to enjoy. And what would good food be without great beer? The brewery in the city of Klaipėda has used the same recipe since 1784 to make award-winning beer. They include hops from Germany and a unique system of horizontal fermenting containers. During World War II, the brewery was spared from destruction. This is one of the oldest factories in Lithuania. They were also the sponsors of the Lithuanian Olympic basketball team, who in 1996 became bronze medal winners. Palanga is the seaside resort town where all streets from the hotels lead to the ocean. Modern amusements and restaurants attract crowds of all ages from August to September. Avoid July because that's rainy season. There's been a long tradition to go to the pier in Palanga to see the sunset. Even back in the 19th century, ladies would put on their best dresses to walk and watch the sun slowly slip into the ocean.
You